Okay, Dan, we're fresh off talking about where XE came from,
Mm-hmm.
and most especially what happened starting in 2021 that led up to one of the craziest bamboozles in all of open source slash Linux slash FOSS slash Unix slash compression history, right? Like,
yeah, it's nuts.
and more even broader than that. Like, this is software that even companies that make proprietary software depend on. This is
They build their stuff on this. Yeah.
right. So this is internet wide. Dan, how do we fix the internet? Why is open source susceptible to these types of attacks? Is closed source susceptible to this? What can we do to alleviate these problems in the future? Dan, you have all the answers. How safe is it to base your entire software stack on one person's personal project? Okay, all right, I'm sorry. I'll back up.
Whew.
How do we fix the internet? Give me all the answers right now.
Okay. The internet's broken, folks. We can't fix it.
Well, we knew that during it was Heartbleed, right? Was it?
Yeah. That's a bad one.
The one about OpenSSL, and there was the one guy that was kind of propping up the entire.
No. We've been here, done this. Like, this is not the first time.
Right, and then one company was like, "Here, we'll cut you a $40,000 check," and then we never talked about him again, and yet we're still running all of our encryption over the same types of protocols.
Yeah, we thought about changing, and then we changed back, and here we are. Yeah, right. And it's the same kind of thing all over again. We just keep doing this. We keep doing it. Listen, like, so a lot of these maintainers are starting to get fed up. Like, they're saying, it's my project. It's a personal project. I'm not your supplier. Like, don't at me, bro. I mean,
yeah.
Right? This isn't like I put this out there as a hobby thing. It's great that you use it, but if you're really depending on it, maybe there should be some contract, or maybe they should get some compensation. All of those things. Like, maybe that should happen. I think that's part of the issue, right? Is someone is trying to scratch their own itch, and they created something, and it's great, and people are taking a hold of it. And that's fine if we keep it at that range, a lot like we do with this podcast, right? Or this is our passion project. We take some donations in Patreon, but we don't depend on it to feed our families and
Right.
whatnot, right? We offer it up there so you can take it as is. But please don't build your business on the stuff that we do.
Right. Like, it's CC BY, right? Like, you could do that. But if you do that and you build an entire business on top of that, and then, we take a left turn and we're not, maybe we stop the podcast. I'm not suggesting that's what's going to happen.
Give it up.
But
yeah, just
right,
give it up. Right?
Or we take a year off or something like that, right? And then you come back and start saying, hey, where are the episodes at? We need these now. We're not a patron or anything like that. We just need it. We just need it more now. Hurry. Absolutely not, right? Like, but that kind of begs the question, is open source and people that do stuff like this, ostensibly for free, is that just an innate susceptibility of open source or open culture or open... Yeah, just open stuff.
I mean, sure, in a way. Hopefully, though, the way a lot of the open source projects work is there's multiple people. There's a team of people, and they've kind of been working together for a while. So they can have some rotation in duties, maybe have some sort of code of conduct so they know how to act. And I guess gracefully walking away from the project can hand it off to someone else for a time. All of those types of things are on your honors, your honor system, essentially. but they're there, and I think a lot of the projects are governed that way, so they are sustainable and can continue, and there's some peer review going on, those types of things. I think that's typically the way projects go that are, long-term projects and sustainable.
Yeah. What do you think open sourcers, I don't even know how to describe them, because open source and FOSS are different things. Free and open source and open source.
True.
They're different things, and there's
True.
licenses that kind of fall on one side or the other. But what do you think would be the reaction to, say, if Red Hat was a big user of XZ, and instead of contributing to XZ and kind of depending on the head maintainer approving merges and things like that, they just fork XZ, call it something else, and then take it off in their own direction? Would that be good? I mean, it's certainly in the spirit of FOSS, because that's the entire reason it exists, for you to be able to take the code, study the code, do whatever you want to the code, as long as you
publish it.
Most of the open source licenses require some kind of reciprocation of, as long as you make that stuff available too, and that way maybe it can be merged back into the original project, or additional forks can be made. Do you think that would be something that that would be, kosher in the communities that kind of back this type of software?
That's a bit of a coup, I guess, the way you described it, perhaps. But typically the way I would envision something like that going down is because someone wants to go a different direction than the original project, and so they want to make some changes, and maybe attempted to try to get those included into the project, but were unsuccessful.
Exactly the way that Giatan did, I think, because
that's true.
While what Gia was doing, and we're talking Gia as in
a person, we don't know if it's a person or multiple persons or an entity.
Right.
We don't know what it is. We've got
I don't have enough facts to really speculate, but
I don't think anybody does.
Feels a little groupy, but
it might be.
That's kind of the idea, right? And then there was pressure from other, let's call them users of the software, people on the mailing list that were transient, because they disappeared. They no longer exist, really.
Nom de plume.
Right, exactly, right?
Pen
a pen
names.
name. Yeah. That's kind of the way, the regular open source way was kind of the way that these changes ended up merged in. They took advantage of someone, Colin, that was not putting his full attention on the project at the time, which is his right to do. It's his project.
Exactly.
But then they added a layer of social engineering to it, to layer on the guilt and layer on the, people are languishing. They're not able to get these cool new features that we're trying to add to the project. And Colin relented and allowed Gia eventually, over about a year, to get his essentially hooks into the project and start merging in his own changes. But isn't that the open source way? Now, I'm not talking about the social engineering part, but I am talking about someone that is a concerned user that has the ability to...
It's what we promote.
Add value to the... Yeah, this is exactly what developers that are tired of hearing. Add this feature, add this feature, add this feature, with not a single pull request in sight.
Send in your pull request. Yeah, send your pull requests.
Exactly. This is, a lot of times, this is what gets asked of the people making those requests. Well, I'm waiting for your code. Send a pull request. We'll take a look at it, and maybe we'll merge it. But
can you help us implement that feature? Because, we don't have a lot of time. So maybe you can help us, contribute some of that.
Exactly. And this is the kind of thing that was taken advantage of.
Yeah.
So it's just this, the open source way is susceptible to social engineering attacks in this way.
Timing was good.
Yeah, especially when it comes down to the one-man type project like XZ ended up being. Now, there was a team, and there certainly were more contributors than just Colin throughout the lifetime of XZ, but, at the time of all of this, Colin that was it.
Yep,
That was the hurdle you had to pass.
Yep.
Right.
Well, let's face it, this isn't exciting. It's not an exciting thing to be working on.
Yeah.
There's no bling here. Right?
Yeah, we have. I mean, like at the beginning of the history, we had to kind of define compression because not everybody is fully up on terminology like that. We had to define software development kit. We had to define a couple of different things just to make sure that everybody could follow along with the timeline. Because not only is it not particularly interesting unless you're a mathematician, unless you really enjoy things like LZMA or compression algorithms or mathematics in general. It's technical too. So you get into the weeds of things.
Oh yeah.
And so it turns a lot of folks off. So it happens in the shadows, what's going on.
It provides a good function. Don't get me wrong. It backs up a whole bunch of other things that you might be working on. So that may be a reason to be interested in it as well as it can make your, further your project along.
Yeah.
But all by itself, it is not exciting.
Right, exactly, and which explains why there was only one person working on XZ in the first place. But yet it had so much adoption in 2019, 2020, leading up to those years. Almost everybody, all of the big distros
because it
used
worked
it.
well. It worked well.
Exactly, and yet it was still headed up by essentially one person.
One guy.
So it is a problem of open source to deal with these kinds of things, and these. I don't think anybody getting into programming or scratching their own itch or doing anything like this ever expects to be rocketed into popularity because some people decided that your invention essentially is the best one, is the best way to do it, and just like OpenSSL before it.
Yeah, same thing.
It was the best way to encrypt everything on the internet at all times forever, and when you find a flaw in it. Oh no.
Yeah.
What are we going to do? Pay the guy? Probably not.
That's not the only thing that motivates people though either.
Exactly. And I think the blog post of, I'm not part of the supply chain. Why are you involving me in all of this? I never said that I wanted to be part of your house of cards. To then have all of this pressure on me, in some cases, to have to fix this or to deal with this or to whatever.
I think this goes back to one of your other questions that you had. Does that make closed source better?
I don't think it does because, as we've seen time and time again, closed source is going to reach out to open source and use those types of projects inside their own projects. And as long as they do attribution for most of those licenses, everything's cool.
Right. But it's worse then because you don't see what's going on. But this is a case where even though this was open source, you still couldn't see what was going on. You know why? Because it was a binary thing that was included in a test, of the application, if you will.
Yeah.
And so you couldn't look inside of that. You had to run it in order to know what happened.
Exactly. So you had to have someone that just had the right amount. That's André's point. It had the right amount of interest in what was going on.
Everybody is thanking that got found. I mean, because it was one of those that's just not obvious.
Exactly. So, I mean, he had the time, he had the gumption, he had the willingness to dig down and actually figure it out. I mean, there were traces involved. This is hours and hours and hours of time dealt with to try and track down why is SSH acting weird? And it just led rabbit hole after rabbit hole after rabbit hole to find out that what's this SSH key doing here? How did it get here?
Right.
And then luckily telling us all about it on OpenWall and Mastodon, and then it exploded over the next 24 hours, and Debian and Fedora caught on their heels. Oh God, revert this.
Yeah, and Ubuntu, like everybody was rebuilding from scratch. Yeah. Everything, every package, start over, rebuild all your packages.
But that's the boon of open source. In a closed source world, you wouldn't have this kind of investigation unless that person is employed at that place on the team to be able to test that thing, to be able to look at it, to be able to ask those questions and not be shut down at any step of the way.
Yeah. And so I want to dive into the timing of things a little more there too, because Ubuntu was just getting ready to release 2404, right? And Fedora also looking to release Fedora 40, and things are frozen up and stuff's happening, and like not a lot of time before these things are happening,
right?
The releases, and so they both, midnight oil was burned to get things back to a good state. Yep. And that's a lot of work. It was a lot of work, and watching it go by.
And I hope most, if not all, of the people that were working to be able to roll those things back in free and open source software projects were paid. Because this is one of those things that will quite literally break the internet.
Yes.
I mean, to regular folks, that means that they can't get to their services, but it goes way, way deeper than that. I mean, we're talking about secrets stolen that were never meant to touch anywhere outside of a specific network or a specific zone. What a bullet that we all dodged with something like that. And it's not just running Ubuntu. It is pretty much all of the web servers on the internet.
Yeah, exactly. And so we were days away, really, from seeing that get released to a new LTS for Ubuntu and another release of Fedora. I mean, we were just moments in a way. And
if you weren't running System D, if you didn't have those binaries, if you didn't have that stuff, if you're running Slack or if you're running Arch, I know you weren't affected. But the fact of the matter is,
what runs the internet, Leo?
Exactly. It is not a Gentoo box hanging on by duct tape, compiling its kernel once a month. That's not what's running the internet. It is.
That exists, but it's not everything. Yeah.
Exactly. The bigger systems that tend to run System D, that tend to run SSH, are the ones that are susceptible to this kind of thing.
Yeah. But it's not only that, right? Yeah. So it goes on to your next question, but go ahead.
Yeah. So to close out the closed source thing, it would have affected them and we would have never known about it. And it would have been in a Microsoft Patch Tuesday, and it would have been buried under line after line after line after line after line of boring stuff. And they would have been like, oh yeah, this would have broken the internet too, but we patched that one. It's been around for 2 years and we didn't know about it, but we just figured it out. So, and that's how that would have gone. And then, ours would have ran with it. Maybe there would have been a wired deep dive into it or something like that.
Yeah, bleeping computer would have had a post. Yeah, whatever.
Right, but it would have been a blip on the internet, because that kind of stuff happens in closed source software all the time.
Yep.
And
don't even know. Don't even know what's in it.
Don't know. So what do we do? So we know that there's social engineering involved. We know that there's high technical ceiling code understanding and stuff involved. It's a multi-pronged, multi-discipline attack. What can we do to alleviate these problems from ever happening again?
That's a good question. I don't know if I have the answer to that. So, but hear me out. You can still have open source and still have like corporate sponsorship. I mean, Red Hat does it all the time, right? So they pay their developers to work on open source projects. They certainly have specific ones that they would like to see done, but they kind of got your own thing that you can go work on, right? And so you're getting the support you need, and hopefully you've got a team of people to work with on the stuff so that you're not getting overwhelmed and beaten down and your project gets abandoned, or you can have the coup come in and take over, right?
Yeah.
Those are the two things that we want to avoid. We want to avoid, burnout, essentially, and coups. I guess that's what we need to watch out for. And then, review of code. I don't know how else to simplify it. I think those are the things we need to have happen.
So I think maybe you're right. I think you're absolutely right. I think all of those things are correct. But I think it leads to just a totally different question. I think maybe how do we alleviate these problems in the future might be the wrong question to ask. Maybe the question we should be asking is that silly XKCD that we've seen time and time again, where it's this, like Tinker Toy building, very, very tall. And off to the side, there's this one tiny little strip of wood or whatever it's made out of. And it's
just holding up the whole thing. The whole house is sitting right on that, right?
Yeah. And in this case, it would be XZ. The question to be asking is, how safe is it to base your entire software stack on one single person's passion project?
Yeah, but I mean, everything's built on something, and it's got to start somewhere.
Right. So I think what we need to be asking ourselves before we base our entire software stack on a personal project, personal passion project, what we should be asking for is consent. We should be going, and we is in the corporate sense of we, Microsoft, Red Hat, Ubuntu Canonical, these companies, even projects like Debian and Fedora should be, before they integrate deeply these projects into the core of their being, such that if there were some kind of infiltration by some wacky social engineer guy that was able to get binaries into a library to be able to extract SSH keys, to be able to eventually log in to your system from anywhere, is, hey man, can I use this in my project? This is a pretty big project. It's going to be big. It's like we've actually already got X number of users. Can we integrate this in there and actually use that and rely on you? And, if you want money, we can provide that. If you want support, we can provide that. If you want, what do you need for us to be able to base our entire software stack on your personal passion project? Ask for consent. That's the answer I think that we're all scrambling to look for. Because having that in the first place and knowing what a developer may or may not need going forward and being open to the conversation that those needs might change in the future is really the heart of the problem that we're experiencing over and over and over again. And when you have these problems, you have to get to the root of it. And the root of it is relying on somebody's work that never said you could. Yes, they licensed it that way, but you're depending on it in a way that I don't think they ever imagined when they first created that project. So, on top of that open source license that says that you can do with it what you want, maybe open a line of communication to find out what it's going to take to be able to use this project in the way that you want.
Well, and I think you need to be asking, what's the stability of the project? How many contributors are working on it? And then say, where can we come in and help?
So, I think to answer the question that we started out this segment with, how do we fix the internet? It's consent. That's the fix. Communication. That's it.
Seems simple.
And easy. So if you want to get an easy list of all the links that we have available for you to click on, and some that you can't even click on, we're just going to fake you out, and you're going to click, and it's not going to take you anywhere. You can go to linuxuserspace.show. And if you want to send out messages into the ether that we may or may not read onto the show, I'm kidding. If you send me an email, I'll probably read it on the show.
We'll probably read it.
contact@linuxuserspace.show. Do you think, is this it? Do you think it's consent and communication? Because I do.
Let us know.
I think that's the beginnings of any relationship. And software development and integrating somebody's project is a relationship. Consent and communication, it is that simple. Tell me if I'm wrong. Contact at linuxuserspace.show or go find us out on the internet, whether that's on Apple Podcasts or AntennaPod or what was that one that you use?
Podverse
or Audio Bookshelf or however you consume the show.
Yeah.
Leave a comment under that thing. If you can't leave a comment under that thing, go find us on YouTube or just send us an email. linuxuserspace.show also has a contact form. Click on that. Leave us a return email so I can tell you
we'll
what episode and give you a timestamp of where we talk about your thing. That's actually kind of important too. I'm getting really good at that.
Yeah.
For everybody that has sent in feedback before, we probably did talk about your thing. I just did not go back and tell you where we talked about your thing. So
we make you listen to the whole show that way. I mean, I guess there's a reason for that, right?
I'm not trying to make you listen to the whole thing, but if you did, it wouldn't be a bad thing. But I'm just getting really good now at sending back return emails and telling you where we actually talked about the thing that you brought up, because most of those topics are actually very interesting to me, and I love talking about those things. So
same.
Do that more. I'll send you more timestamps and stuff like that.